All right, guys, so jumping off the Doomsday cast in general, I wanted to talk about a very specific subset of characters. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about based on the segment title or the thumbnail, but let's talk about the X-Men, because the X-Men, not just any X-Men, but the X-Men from the original cast, right? Interesting to note there's no Michael Fassbender or James McAvoy, but we have, characters who have already reprised their roles in other multiversal forms, variant forms in previous MCU movies like Patrick Stewart and Kelsey Grammer for just a hot second. And then we have other characters who we haven't seen in 20 years. I mean, we had, to be fair, in Deadpool and Wolverine, we had a few characters like that, with Sabretooth showing up for maybe 2 minutes, and Toad was there for a second, and some version of Juggernaut. So it's been happening. They've been planting the seeds, and now it really comes to fruition here. So it's confirmed. Let's just go over this list again in terms of X-Men. We get Kelsey Grammer as Beast, Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, Ian McKellen as Magneto, Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler, Rebecca Romijn as Mystique, James Marsden as Cyclops, and Channing Tatum as Gambit. And it's exciting. So it seems like we are going to be getting a full-fledged X-Men team. Whether or not this is the same team from that universe where Kelsey Grammer's Beast was, I would assume so, just for the ease of continuity, right? For those people who stayed to watch the end credit scene of The Marvels, which, to be fair, not a lot of people did, because that movie only made about $200 million. But still, for those people who did stay, I think it would be interesting, and I think it would make sense to just continue on with that universe, or whatever that universe was that Monica Rambeau ended up in, where she ends up with Kelsey Grammer's Beast, and then he says something like, I got to talk to the professor. So I would assume it's that same X-Men universe. People have been speculating for a long while that universe is the X-Men 97 universe. I wouldn't be too surprised, if this cast ends up being the X-Men 97 cast in live action. I think that would be super interesting, because all of these characters, I guess except for Mystique, right, wasn't a huge part of the X-Men 97 at least. I haven't seen the original animated series, so I'm sure she shows up there and is a big part of it. I just don't know. But I think that these characters all are very interesting, and I think that for me, I said that it was Ian McKellen who was the most exciting for me to see back as his character, because he is just iconic as Magneto, and I love him, and I'm really excited to see him again. What I think is interesting about this, though, is that we've all been talking, at least I have been, and I think a lot of us have been, that the next saga, it looks like we're closing this one up here with Avengers Doomsday, and then we're going to head into what we all assume is the mutant saga, although there have been whispers that it's going to be the cosmic saga or something else. But I would assume the X-Men related saga, very X-Men heavy, mutant heavy, right? And there are a lot of mutants here, obviously. But I think it's interesting that, I had always assumed that, you're going to end that mutant saga with Avengers versus X-Men. It looks like they're doing some version of Avengers versus X-Men here. Granted, I don't think it's Earth 616 X-Men. I highly doubt that. I'm sure that these X-Men characters are going to be coming from a different universe. Maybe they're already under Doom's control. That would be something that's interesting, because one thing from the end of Captain America Brave New World that we remember is that, spoilers for that film, by the way, is that the leader is like, you have to, what are you going to do when you have to protect the world from the others, right? And he didn't say Dr. Doom, he said the others. So, if it's true that the reports are that this film is going to be about Earth 616 sort of protecting itself against other universes as they all kind of struggle, as incursions are happening and whatnot, and different things are going on, and their universes are collapsing, and they all have to fight for their own universe, I think it would make sense, right, to pit universes against one another. I think that is a total, that totally makes sense. So I think it is interesting that we are sort of going to get Avengers versus X-Men just right now. And I think that that's an interesting thing to monitor here, whether, how much they go into that, or some version of an Avengers team versus an X-Men team, I think would be very interesting. Also, the fact that we have another, I would assume another universe where it's the Fantastic Four, right, where they're coming from their own universe. Although, again, it's possible, I suppose, that they come from the same universe as these X-Men. Who knows, right? But, I think we already have 3 universes at play, not to mention, probably many more to come. And so I think it's interesting, right? I would say that, for the most part, Doom is going to be pulling the strings as these other universes sort of fight for their own survival as he works towards some greater plot, probably related to Loki, I would assume. And we'll see where that goes from there. I'm just super excited, though, to see this original X-Men team. I think that, again, Multiverse and Multiverse Saga have not worked out super well in general, right? I've liked a decent bit of the projects. I've, enjoyed them to a certain extent. But I think that just the concept and the way that they've executed it has just not been super stellar. And I think that if you're going to close it out, though, to be just a love letter to the original Marvel heroes and whatnot, And I think that that's what they've been doing with films like Spider-Man No Way Home, for example. I think that that's totally, that's a good way to go about it. So I'm interested, and I'm curious to see what role the X-Men have to play here. I don't think that these X-Men are going to be the X-Men that we see in the future. I just think that they're going to cast much younger, and it's going to be completely different. So we'll have to see. Maybe Channing Tatum comes back as Gambit, although I highly doubt that, just because I think they want to go younger. But we'll see where they go from there. Guys, what do you think of the X-Men's inclusion? It was very prominent in this original cast announcement for Avengers Doomsday. Let me know in the comments down below.